Welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show, Common Sense for the American People. Tracking a business story for you today that is attracting some attention and some questions about potential impact on energy supplies and distribution. Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern Railroads announced an $85 billion merger agreement in July of 2025 to create America's first transcontinental railroad, gaining support from shareholders, but also facing significant regulatory hurdles, including a review from the Surface Transportation Board and opposition from some major unions like the Teamsters. And on top of that, there are some folks out there who are worried about what this merger could do to energy distribution and energy prices for average consumers. Energy affordability, energy reliability, energy security. These are big topics here on the Scott Jennings Show. And to discuss all of this today, I welcome to the show Daniel Turner, who is CEO of an organization called Power the Future. Daniel, welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Scott, great to be on with you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I want to dive in and talk energy and this merger and how they are related. You recently argued in a column on townhall.com that this, quote, $85 billion merger between Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern would be a derailment waiting to happen for America's energy future. Explain, my friend.
Yeah, this is a really important issue because when you think about how much of our energy is transported by rail, right? Obviously, we have a very large infrastructure of pipelines. But for example, coal is never going to be transported through a pipeline. But there is a lot of oil and gas transported around the country on rail as well, not to mention personnel, equipment, machinery. And our concern here is that when you get these big mergers, you get rid of competition, you get rid of competitive pricing, and prices go up. And when you look at a lot of big mergers that have happened over the years, you look at initiatives in the banking world, well, we have fewer, larger, wealthier, more powerful banks. We don't have a better banking system since Warren's banking initiatives or Dodd-Frank. Same is true with healthcare. We have fewer, stronger, wealthier, more powerful healthcare companies. We don't have more options and more affordability. So our concern in the rail industry is this: if we create these behemoth monopolies, we lose competitive pricing, and that is bad for energy writ large, and it's bad for consumers.
Before we get back to the merger issue, as you know, I am from Kentucky, so I know a little bit about the coal industry there. Given all your work in this sector, in this field over the last several years, do you believe that coal still has a big future for America's energy matrix? We have some people out there that's still trying to get rid of it, although we see our competitors on the world stage like China still using a lot of coal out there.
Well, you know, when I've testified before Congress on this issue, there's very simple numbers here that are just commonsensical. The world's coal consumption continues to go up. America's coal consumption continues to increase. What's happening is that America's production is diminishing. And so as the pie gets bigger, America's slice is getting smaller. And I don't see how that's green, right? And we can have a whole separate conversation about climate change and emissions and all of that. But you can't tell me that it is good that China and Indonesia and Malaysia are manufacturing coal and America is not. If you believe it's a global issue, for example. And again, I started Power the Future because as we are pushing towards mining in Indonesia and China and Malaysia, we're telling hundreds of thousands of American coal miners, sorry, we don't care. Get a job, right? Learn to code, do something else. And the tragedy that we've inflicted on rural coal communities, opioids, suicide, depression, poverty, all because it's easier to let these things happen in China. That's why Power the Future was born. American miners should not lose out because it's more profitable to have 9-year-old girls in central China mine coal and slave mines.
Let's talk about energy policy in the macro, and then I promise you we'll get back to the merger issue. Obviously, some energy deregulation took place in the big, beautiful bill last summer. Gas prices are pretty low right now, although in some places, energy prices are going up for consumers. As the Republicans in the House start to look at this next budget reconciliation process, what is the single thing the single piece of advice that you would give them about energy policy that they could do to help bring down costs for consumers and businesses who are seeing higher prices, frankly, because of policies that have been uneven around the country.
Coal. We go back to coal. The best thing you could do, the Biden administration shuttered over 100 functioning coal mines nationwide. There was no referendum, there was no vote, there was no act of Congress. They just used the weaponized EPA. And I'm sure leftists celebrated and said, this is good for the earth, it's good for the climate. Well, that's not true, first of all. And second of all, certainly not good for our pocketbooks. So we have taken offline so many kilowatts and megawatts of reliable electricity production, all in the hopes of one day we will build wind, one day we will build solar. One of the best examples, and you recall this event, July of 2022, a sweaty Joe Biden was in an empty field outside of Boston. He talked about the evils of coal. It's when he told everyone, me and all of my friends have cancer, and everyone scratched their head and said, did Biden just say he has cancer? Right, that was a coal mine, a coal plant. It produced 800 megawatts of power for the Boston area. They gladly demolished it. They got rid of the jobs. And he said, one day we will build. Well, they haven't, and they're never going to. And this wasn't because of Trump. No one bid on an offshore plant. No one bid on a solar plant. So they took away what was working. And how is electricity prices in Massachusetts? They've gone through the roof. So the best thing we could do on affordability is reopen as many coal and natural gas and nuclear and hydro, but reopen what the Biden administration foolishly shuttered.
That's Daniel Turner. He's the CEO of Power the Future. Daniel, you've obviously been tracking over the years a lot about the sources of energy in this country. Now you're interested in how that energy has moved around, the transportation of that energy, which is, I think, what attracted your attention to this proposed merger of these railroads. Tell us about this op-ed that you wrote in townhall.com. Tell us about your organization's concerns. If this merger goes through, what will happen to energy prices and American energy dominance?
Yeah, what will happen in the simplest is that you have less competition, and that's bad for markets in any industry. It's bad if you own a sandwich shop. It's bad if you own a grocery store. Competition keeps prices low. And so our concern is that as we are bringing more American energy online, whether we're mining it, whether we're producing it from the ground, that has to be transported. And if we have just one monopoly, it will be like Amtrak. Right now, I take Amtrak a lot from New York City to Boston, back to DC, et cetera, et cetera. Look at how much Amtrak costs and look at its reliability. No knock to Secretary Duffy; he's trying his hardest, right? But why did the rest of the world seem to have mastered rail, and America hasn't? And the reason why is because they have multiple competitive lines. So I don't want to see one behemoth rail company that will control pricing if we're going to try to keep prices low.
Discussing the potential merger between Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern here. So the application to get federal approval has been filed by the parties here in front of the Surface Transportation Board. I guess that happened right before Christmas. What happens next? What will the Surface Transportation Board be looking at? What questions will they be asking, and will you be engaging in that process?
We are engaged in that process. We sent a letter to Chairman Fuchs expressing our concern, and we referenced a 2001 decision by the Surface Transportation Board on mergers. And their criteria is mergers have to be beneficial for pricing and competitiveness. And we're arguing this will do the exact opposite. And you know, I understand people's hesitation. You don't want to tinker with the private sector. You have to let companies operate, of course. But there is also a role for government in preventing these types of monopolies. And, you know, I used the banking example. I used the healthcare example. Even if that was not the intended consequence, and you can argue whether or not Elizabeth Warren wanted fewer, bigger banks, but if that was not the intended consequence, but that is the reality, right? The reality is we have fewer, larger, richer, more powerful companies, and that is not good for pricing. So I don't want to see that happen to rail like I've seen it happen to other sectors. We've got to get this energy out of the ground. We've got to refine it. We've got to produce it and get it to places so that affordability continues to come down. And one more obstacle would be a behemoth monopoly that is jacking up prices.
Now, devil's advocate, the railroads would say, hey, if you let us merge, we'll have greater efficiencies, we'll be able to do more together, and we might even be able to drive prices down overall in the rail business. How would you answer that retort from them?
Yeah, the best example of what's going to happen in the future is what has happened in the past. And in the past, as we've seen these mergers happen, we've seen affordability go through the roof. We've seen pricing go through the roof, and options. And that's just not just in the rail space. That's an industry writ large. And we do better as a free market when we have more options, more competition in the space. That's what keeps prices low. And the simplest example is just, look at your local town. If you have 3 or 4 grocery stores, that's a hell of a lot better than having just one. If you have 3 or 4 coffee shops, that's better than having just one. And we want coal miners and we want oil and gas workers to say, hey, we've got options what railroad we're going to put our product on. If there's only one option, they will now set the price. That's just human nature. That unfortunately, that's just how the world works. It's a responsibility of government to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay, you've laid out the potential harm that this merger would cause. Do you believe the Surface Transportation Board or the people who are serving on it now agree with you? Is it a little mysterious where they are? Do you have any idea where their leanings may be as this process begins?
I don't. The only newest development in large-scale mergers that have made national news is the Netflix one that President Trump even took to Truth Social and said this would not be a good thing. So my hunch is that the president and his administration are in tune with this to say, yeah, we don't want big monster companies to develop. We don't want these things to get too big. We want options. We want affordability. We want competitiveness. So I'm hoping that that's the direction that we continue to go as a country. That's just classic capitalism, classic belief in free markets, and this concern of corporatism that kind of then tends to dominate the conversation.
10 seconds to go. Daniel, you are the founder and executive director of Power the Future. Where do we find your organization on the internet?
Powerthefuture.com, and you can find this letter and all the other stuff we do to support American energy workers. And thanks for having me on your show, Scott. That means a lot.
Thanks for being here today. Daniel Turner, founder and executive director of Power the Future. Common sense for the American people. More when we come back.